gentlemen, welcome to the Payoff Pitch. My name is Joey Olberding, and I will be your host for all things sports. So when I'm recording at this time, it is a Tuesday. It is November the 28th, and what we are going to be talking about today is we're going to be talking about some college football and football in general, and most specifically, the rankings. The college football rankings for the college football playoff is going to be the main focus of this edition of the Payoff Pitch, because the end of the college football season is coming up. There are a few big games left, some really standout games that I think will be very important, and let me just list them off right here. Number 12 UCF is facing number 16 Memphis. That is a big game. UCF comes into there undefeated. Number 10 TCU versus number 2 Oklahoma. If Oklahoma were to lose, then they'd probably be out of the college football playoff, which the final rankings is next week. So that is a big deal. Number 6 Georgia versus number 4 Auburn. Whoever wins that game is in. Whoever does not win is not in. That is for certain. And they will be bowl bound, certainly, but they will not be able to have the chance to win a national championship for their school. Number 8 Ohio State and number 3 Wisconsin. A lot like number 10 TCU and number 2 Oklahoma. If Wisconsin were to lose that game, then they would be out of the college football playoffs. Even though they are undefeated and they have not had a loss yet, much like UCF, as I previously mentioned. And number 7 Miami is facing number 1 ranked Clemson. Now, that one is not like Oklahoma and Wisconsin in my own opinion. I feel as if Clemson were to lose, I still think that they would be able to make the college football playoff, and maybe even as just a 4 seed, but there are a lot of factors that goes into these, and a lot of crazy circumstances that can go on. I decided to take a look at what I think would be most possible in these rankings, so what I think should be around. So, right now the actual rankings have number 1 Clemson, number 2 Oklahoma, number 3 Wisconsin, and number 4 Auburn. Those would be the 4 teams in the college football playoffs if it started today. Because Alabama, who was the number 1 seed, lost to number 4 ranked now, Auburn. That made them go down to the 5 seed, but it is still very much possible for them to come back to play and be able to just come back and get to the college football playoff. But like I said, there are a lot of factors. So I decided to compile my own ranking. I still think that Clemson is the number 1 seed there, but I switched Wisconsin and Oklahoma. I think Wisconsin is the 2 seed because, as I previously mentioned, they are 12-0 and have not lost a game so far this year, while Oklahoma has. And then I decided that the 4 team should be UCF. I mentioned them a little earlier, with them being the 12th seed facing the number 16th ranked Memphis on Saturday. You may be wondering why I'm picking a current 12 seed to be in the college football playoffs when there are a lot of deserving teams. Well, let me raise you this. UCF is undefeated. They have not lost a game this year, much like Wisconsin. So what my thinking is, if Wisconsin is unbeaten and they are in the college football race at the moment, shouldn't UCF be there too? Now, they do not have a strong schedule, UCF. They do not have a tough schedule. They do not have any huge wins that are really big at all. Nothing that anybody can really say, wow, that is shocking. But I still think that since they're an unbeaten team, they should be in the Final Four, the best 4 college football teams, because you never know. UCF reminds me a lot of another team in college that a lot of people weren't too sure of, Wichita State. Now, Wichita State has some crazy parallels to UCF at the moment. Wichita State, in the 2014 NCAA tournament, or before then, were undefeated. They were undefeated going into there, but they did not have a strong schedule. And a lot of people said I'm not so sure about this Wichita State team because they aren't that good, right? I mean, they may be undefeated, but they don't have a strong schedule. But still, the NCAA awarded them a 1 seed in the South, I believe. Maybe the West. I do not remember. In any case, they did well. They did well. They didn't do outstanding. They did not win. They did not win the national title, but they did very well, and it really showed a lot of people, hey, maybe this team isn't so bad after all. And you know what? Now this year in the NCAA tournament, or NCAA, maybe, quite possibly in the NCAA tournament, depending on how things go for their team, they are in the American Conference, which is a big conference. With Cincinnati, UConn, you name it, there are a lot of good teams there, especially Cincinnati, who has been one of the best teams this year. Really shocking a lot of people. In any case, moving back to college football, UCF has a lot of those parallels. They don't have an amazing team. Nobody that you can really say is an outstanding star. They are a very good team. How else would they be unbeaten? I mean, they have to be very good, right? I mean, you don't have an undefeated team and have it be a total fluke. So, I think if you really want to prove that your squad can go out there, even if you're not in such a strong division like the SEC or the Big Ten or some other conference, that you can still go out there and fight. And fight they will. I can see it if they were to make it. But the only way they can make it is if they beat the 16th ranked Memphis. And that's a big game. Because if they lose, it shows that maybe they are just a fluke after all. You can't be too certain until the very end. Because even if it's a loss at the very end, no matter how close it is, shows that you're vulnerable. And to a 16th ranked team like Memphis, it's different from losing to Clemson or Oklahoma or Wisconsin or Alabama or any of those teams. It's different. So I think UFC is in an interesting position where it's must win or you may not ever win again. Well, that's different for Oklahoma and Wisconsin and Auburn and Alabama and Ohio State and Miami and Georgia and all those teams. That's different because they always have the chance to go back out there again and win again because they're such strong teams throughout many years. And Wisconsin is kind of has a little more parallel to UCF in the fact that they're undefeated and they have to win out in order to get into the college football playoff. Because in my opinion, the college football playoff is really unfair. Unfair to who? Unfair to all the schools that do really, really well, but they still don't get the chance to prove that they can win a national title, that they're worthy of it. They don't get that opportunity just because of one loss or two losses to good teams. That happens. And because of that, you're not in the top four? Well, off you go. Sorry, we can't let you in this year. And in my opinion, that's stupid. Me and a lot of other people, especially in the radio business, agree that the college football playoff shouldn't be 4, it should be 8. Now, you could argue that that means more games, and these are college kids, and that is a fair judgment. But I think that if you really want to have an enriching and actually fair experience in your NCAA football, that you need to have 8 teams, because there are more than 4 really good teams in college football. Anybody who just looks at some of the team names can know that. I mean, I will mention these teams again. Clemson, they won it all last year. Alabama, they're always good. Ohio State, they've won it many times. Not necessarily in the college football playoff, but they've been a historically great team, as has Miami, as has Georgia, as has Oklahoma, as has Auburn. I could go on and on. So the thing is, with only 4 teams in the college football playoff, I would say it's very unfair to those other 4 teams who can't make it in, like your TCU or your Ohio State, who probably won't be able to make it this year, or your Miami, or, any team. Any team could be like that. I'm currently giving Clemson a 95% chance to win it all based on different rankings or different possibilities that could happen. I've gone through all the possible outcomes to all the big games that I've mentioned, and I've come up with a precise percentage for every team to win that. Now, that's not even taking into account the current projections they are to win that. So, like, Clemson is favored towards Miami. Though Miami has been an outstanding team this year, they lost one game last week, and that set them back. That set them back. It was a bad loss, and now they are not ranked as well as they would be. They would be 12-0. They would have to be in the playoff. As it stands, they aren't. So, what can you do but just say, "Oh yeah, Clemson, they're going to win," right? I mean, they're the number one ranked team in the country and they're looking strong. I'm not taking into account that, honestly, because the thing is, all these teams have their strengths and they have their weaknesses. One really evenly matched matchup is the Georgia Auburn game. That is an incredibly close game that will no doubt be close. And I can really just say that. The Clemson and Miami game, I think that may be close, but that also may be a total blowout. The Ohio State and Wisconsin game seems like it's going to be a good one. TCU and Oklahoma, not so much. UCF and Memphis looks also to be pretty evenly matched, but we can't say for sure for the reasons I mentioned earlier with UCF. Anyways, I'm giving Clemson a 95% chance to make the college football playoffs without the matchups. Without the matchups stacked in and out of their favors. Against Miami, of course. If so, it would probably be higher. It would probably be more like a 97% chance. And why I say 97, because even if they lose, they're still one of the most dynamic teams in the country. They still only have 2 losses. And I think that the ranking committee may just say, okay, well, you've been really good this year, and so we're going to leave you in. I say that, but that may not be the case whatsoever. In fact, a team like Alabama may just swoop in and crawl back into the playoffs after a week of not being there. That is very possible. I'm also giving Oklahoma and Wisconsin a 75% chance. That 75% chance is if they win, and also if the other teams lose. Because I am kind of using the matchups here. Oklahoma and Wisconsin have both been great teams. And I think that if they win, they're in. If they lose, they're out. But they have the higher percent chance to win both their games. And even if they lose, it's not even guaranteed that they'll be out of it. Because think about it. If, say, for instance, and this is certainly just for instance, this is not in any way totally, for certain. If everyone loses but Auburn in their game against Georgia, you are going to have Auburn as the 1 seed, quite possibly. Alabama as the 2 seed because they're not playing because their last game was the one in which they lost to Auburn in the Iron Bowl. Clemson would probably stay there because Georgia lost, and Ohio State, even though they upset a team like Wisconsin or TCU, that still doesn't mean that they're better than, all the other teams. And UCF would lose, so they would be out of it. So you'd have Auburn, Alabama, Clemson, and then I'd say you could either have Oklahoma or Wisconsin. Oklahoma or Wisconsin would be a great matchup. Unless all the teams win except for UCF, then that's not possible. But that would be a great matchup between Wisconsin and Oklahoma without a doubt. Both teams are very evenly matched. I mean, one team's undefeated, one has 1 loss. That sounds like great college football to me. And so I'm giving them both a 75% chance to make the college football playoff. But that's not necessarily going to be exact. See, 75% chance to win based on other teams, get into it. But that doesn't mean exactly that if they win, they will be able to get it. Now, I say that because of these other teams. UCF has a 50% chance. That is simply just if they win, they're in. If they lose, they're out. Nothing else to it. Georgia and Auburn are also in a similar situation. I'm giving Georgia a 50% chance to get into it. If they win, they're in. If they lose, they're not in. Now, I'm giving Auburn a 60% chance to get in. Because if UCF were to lose, and all the other teams were to win, and also the fact that already people are predicting, oh yeah, Auburn's definitely going to get into it, just looking at the current college football rankings. And Auburn could get in even though, UCF is the only team that loses, because who are you going to put there? Because if Auburn beats Georgia, that's a great win for them. That is a fantastic win for Auburn, because Auburn has already beaten Alabama, the number 1 seed at the time, and now going in and beating the 6th-ranked Georgia back-to-back games. That's really impressive, and the ranking committee could not ignore that. I know I couldn't ignore that. Really, other than that, it's win-loss, win-loss. Georgia or Auburn, if one of them wins, they're in. If Georgia wins, they're in. If Auburn wins, they're in. But Georgia would be out, and if Georgia were to win, Auburn would be out. I'm also giving Alabama a 50% chance to get in, just because this is actually probably lower, but if multiple teams were to lose, including Auburn or Georgia, then Alabama has a chance to sneak in. So, say for instance, say if Clemson and Oklahoma were to lose, Wisconsin would be the number 1 seed. But at the 2 seed, you would put either Auburn or Alabama. Auburn because, like I mentioned, they had a very good game. And Alabama because they still only have that one loss, and that was against Auburn. So if they can have a rematch in the college football playoff for the first time ever, for even bigger stakes than the Iron Bowl, not only would that be great television, but you're looking at a matchup for the ages, and really just great. The 4th team would be UCF, of course, because like I say, you cannot ignore an undefeated team, no matter what. I wouldn't. I hope you wouldn't, because, I mean, if they haven't lost, who's to say that they're even beatable? Now, I'm giving Miami a 5% chance. 5% chance is a very low percent chance. Almost no percent chance. If I'm not mentioning a team here, that's because they're probably not going to get into the college football playoff. And by probably, I mean almost definitely. Miami is one of those teams. Miami only has 1 loss on the season, and I've previously mentioned this. And you may be saying, wait a second. Miami's going up against the number 1 ranked Clemson. If Miami beats Clemson, then that has to be a total, yes, they're in. Well, I say no, because think about it. Ohio State and Wisconsin, the number 8 and the number 3 seeds, as I previously mentioned, if Ohio State were to beat Wisconsin, would that propel them into the top 4? No, it wouldn't, right? Ohio State is a 2-loss team. Ohio State is not even that great of a team. It's a great team, but it's not on the levels of Clemson, Oklahoma, or even Alabama, so that's that. Miami, the College Football Rankings Committee was very skeptical of them, until 2 weeks ago, when they won again, and they were almost undefeated. They were 10-0, and then the Rankings Committee was like, okay, I'll throw you a bone, you're the 3rd seed now. You may be undefeated, but I'm not sure that's gonna last, and it didn't. They lose the very next game in a bad loss, and that just moves them down a lot. It was a bad loss. It was not a good loss. It wasn't like, oh, you gave it your all, team. Great job. No, it was bad. It was a bad loss, and you cannot do that when you're so close to the end of the college football season. Miami cannot lose in that circumstance. You need to give it your all no matter what. This may not be the college football playoffs yet, but if you can get there, then you have to give it even more of your all. You can't just slack off in these games. No matter what bad of a team you think you're facing, you cannot slack off. And because of that, even if they were to beat number 1 ranked Clemson, they could not get into the college football playoffs. And with that, I think that'll do it for this week's edition of the Payoff Pitch. I hope that you enjoyed it, and I hope that you'll be able to check us out on TuneIn Radio and subscribe to us on YouTube at Clark Montessori. And I think that you should also follow us on Twitter at Soko Club. And I think that from me, Joey Olberding, from the entire staff at 95.7 MRC, that you will tune in again for all things sports and so much more.